G'day, we are in the brewery today. It is time to brew the NEIPA recipe I made yesterday. I won't go too much into the details. If you want details for the recipe, I'll leave a link below, and I've made a recipe creation video all about it. I'm a little bit worried with this damn virus. My package hasn't turned up with my Sabro hops, and I really need them for this beer. Well, I really wanted them for this beer. It's going to be fine. I might sub them out with, I'll see what I've got in the freezer, maybe Amarillo or Simcoe. So I know I've got a heap of Citra and Mosaic. It's just I was relying on that Sabro to add something, a little bit different. But that's okay. These things happen on brew days. And I can easily sub it out with something else. If I had Galaxy, I don't think I've got any Galaxy. But yeah, Simcoe. I think I'll probably use Simcoe and maybe some Amarillo. We'll see how we go, and we'll hope the postman comes up. But as I said, there's no point going on about the recipe. You can go and see that recipe creation video. Let's just dive straight in and brew it. It's going to be a hard brew. I can't remember exactly, but there's over 6 kilo of grain from memory. Nearly 6.5 kilo maybe. I've got a full bucket of grain, and I said in the video to start with 20 litres like I usually do. I might push that to 21. Yeah, it'll throw my salts out a little bit, but not enough to worry about, because I'm still going to add the rest of the salts to the boil anyway. That'll all even out to get my water profile right. I am using RO water today. I might have mentioned it in the creation video, but I'll also have a recipe for tap water, well, for West Melbourne tap water. I can't really put it for everybody's tap water, but it'll give you an idea, and you can probably just use that just about anywhere in Australia. You'll know, if you're an all-grain brewer, probably what your water's like, and you can use your water profile anyway. Anyway, enough chat, let's dive straight into it. We'll just have a quick look at some of the ingredients. This is the Wyman pale wheat. You can see it's much smaller, might be a bit hard to tell on that big screen, but it's much smaller usually than my normal grain, and you'll see me in other videos and this video grind it separately to the other malt. And that's just to make sure it's ground. I always lose a bit of efficiency using it if I don't, and it saves me messing with my big mill. My big mill's sort of set perfectly to the grain I use, and I don't like shifting it around too much. And it's just handy that I've got this other Maltzilla sitting there, and I just use that for the wheat at this stage. Now it's up to you what you do with your wheat. You can just run it through your normal mill or whatever, but I just find I like to make sure, because it's much smaller, much harder grain, I like to make sure it's milled up. And here's the new grain I'm using today, and it's a Blue Lake flaked wheat. Flaked wheat doesn't really need to be milled. As you can see, it's already like gelatinized and squashed, so you should be right to throw it into your mash. I will say one thing, just in case you don't make it through this whole video. I was down a few numbers by the end of the day, and I think it was this malt. I think next time I might give it a soak. I might even put it through the mill. Because I was down a fair bit, and I used a fair bit of this grain, and that's the only reason I can think of it at this stage. And the other flaked ingredient we'll use is flaked oats, and that's simply quick oats there. You can buy it from the brew shop, or you can buy it from the supermarket. Then we have the base malts, 2.7 kilo of Pilsner, 2 of ale malt, and 300 grams of carapils, and then all the flaked malts get added to that and mixed really well. So as I mentioned in the intro, I probably should have started with 21 litres of water, but I started with 20. I added my salts. Now if you want to make a nice hazy IPA, you can probably get away without too much water chemistry. But if you're going to make an NE IPA, the water chemistry is very important, and you really should look into it. So I start with some rice hulls, lots of flake grain, wheat. It's good to use rice hulls. Now in the background there you can see me emptying the bucket into another bucket, and that's just because even though I mixed it, I still know a lot of that flake grain was on top, and I wanted to get it. I didn't want the flake grain to be at the bottom of the malt pipe, sort of easily block that way. So I sort of poured it off the top, poured what I knew would be base grain with nice big hulls. Put that in first. Then I'll often halfway through, throw in some more rice hulls, put a bit more grain in, and then put a bit more rice hulls on top. So as you can see, it was getting quite full. Threw in some more rice hulls, just to make sure. There really wasn't that much rice hulls. They'd be lucky to have been 200 grams all up. I don't really use that many, I don't usually need to. But as you can see, it was getting quite thick. So I put in 1 more litre of water. I should have listened to my instincts at the start. But that litre of water, just that 1 litre, really made a difference. That looks pretty good. Still going to make sure we're stirred, although I have a feeling with this brew that there might be a fair bit of stirring through this mash. We might be lucky, but there's a lot of, you know, porridge and oats or wheat. Well, look, that's looking pretty good. I'm going to put the lid on, let it sit for 5 minutes before we try or attempt to turn the pump on. 65 degrees we're set at now. That is 5 minutes. Turn it down a bit. I don't want to go fast. Not with this grain bill and this grain bed. I'm not going to use the top screen for the same reason that I don't think I'm going to get any flow through this bed. I'll need to be able to stir. So I just put some on top, see how we go. I can't lift that up anymore, it might come off if I do. Turn it on just a little. See that? Yeah. It might even be too much, but we'll see how we go. Yeah, we're building up already. And back right off. But we're not doing too bad. We've only just come up to the bottom of that rubber, which is, I expected it to come a little bit higher, but so far we're doing okay. We'll come back in 5 minutes and see how it's going. We're 5 minutes in and it looks like we are backing up. Well, we're 10 minutes into the mash now, I guess. I don't usually start the timer yet. We are backing up. I'm still not too worried. We've still got a flow. If it gets over this, then I'll start to worry. I'm just going to jump in again here. Everything was going pretty well. Yeah, I'd backed up a little bit. Not as much as I expected. I just did give a little stir. You know, it's still very early in the mash. We're barely 10 minutes since I put the grain in there. And I was starting to get worried when I was stirring it, even looking at the flaked wheat at this point in time. You'll hear me say it in a second here. But everything besides that, it was going okay. It was going okay. Still, as I said, we're only 10 minutes in. Still just trying to make sure that everything's wet. No dry spots. Looking at some of this flaked wheat, I have a feeling I should have put it through the mill, but I think it'll be okay. I'm not going to show every time I opened it up and had a look, because really, after this, flow went pretty well. I did the usual. I took a pH reading. My pH was a bit high, but I'd also forgotten to put the lactic acid in. I was so concentrated on making sure I got my salts right, I forgot the lactic acid. Plus also there was an extra litre of water. So my pH was a little high, but besides that, everything went quite smooth. So I mashed out like usual. And you can see there, the word's quite clear. It surprised me how clear it was for an NEIPA. So I sparged. I had to remember that I'd put in an extra litre of water into the mash. So I sparged with about 15 litres. As usual, I just sparge until I get up to the full mark, till I get up to about that 30 litre mark, and started getting it up to the boil. I added the rest of my salts, which is easy to forget at this stage when you do a split salt additions like I do, mash and boil. Like always, I set up the strainer as a filter as I'm coming up to the boil. Turn off your pump during the boil. You don't want your pump going while it's boiling. But as you can see here, I got nothing out of that. That's really good. Nothing. Here's the first wort hops. I actually forgot to put them in while I was sparging, but it's okay. We're not anywhere near boiling yet. I'll put them in now. They should have went in when I started the sparge, but they'll be fine. Now, even though the mash went smoothly, I'm still a little bit worried that I don't think we'll get... I always seem to drop points when I use a lot of wheat and flaked things. So we'll see, and if I have to adjust it with dextrose, as I said in the recipe creation video, that is totally fine. Have a look at your big NEIPA ingredients on the cans and you'll often, more than often, see dextrose. Even this Quiet Deeds one I had last night, where is it? Dextrose. See, they use Simcoe in this. That was a nice beer. My Sabro hasn't turned up today. I'm really disappointed, so I think I'm going to have to use the Sabro for Simcoe. So I'll have Citra, Simcoe and Mosaic, which funnily enough is in my other IPA. But, you know, this is made very differently. As most people know, I don't take a reading until it's boiling, so I know it's well mixed. And it's consistent. I do all my recipes like that. And then I also know exactly what the gravity is when I'm going to add my hops, which is the important part. Not so much in this has got first wort hops, but keep things consistent, all your readings at the same time. But I know there's a lot of flaked grains in this, like my wheats and my porridge, oats. I'll show you how confident I am that I'm going to hit my gravity. I've already set up my dextrose ready to weigh out and see how much I have to add to try and get to my, pre-boil of about 55. I would not be surprised if I was under 50. Like, that's not much, and I could boil off, you know, to get down to my starting gravity. But because these, you know, beers have a lot of dry hop and there's going to be a lot of hop in there, I'm going to lose volume as it is. So I'm more concerned with volume here. So I'm going to keep the volume. I'll add a bit of dextrose just to get it up if I need it. I don't know yet. And then we'll be fine to go. Right, let's take a reading. 48. Yep, I'm down 7 points. That's a lot of points. So as expected, I weighed out some dextrose. I just went with about 400 grams. Might not get me right up to the 55, but it's going to get me close enough where I'm happy. So I take another reading, and that's very close. That's close enough for me. 1053. I'll probably make that up in the boil. 53. And because we're first wort hopping, just boil for an hour. Don't have to add any hops until whirlpool. Alright, we're at the end of the boil. I'm going to turn off the elements. We need to get this down to around ABC. I'm going to clamp that there like that. I'm going to turn the water on, chiller on. So I've got the water running. I'll turn the pump on. We're going to get this down to about 80 degrees Celsius. We're pumping through. Sorry, might be a bit hard to see. Yeah, we're pumping through. So it's going through here, getting chilled in here, and going back in. It shouldn't take too long. 93, oh no, 96, we're still a bit high. Down the bottom we're saying 86. So I might give that a bit of a stir. I don't want to lift the plate up at the bottom or anything. So give it a stir. So we're getting close there, it's 84. I don't know if you can read that. 84. As soon as I get to 80, I'm going to turn off the water. I kind of did it wrong here. I should have briefly turned off the pump while I went and turned the water off, because as I went and turned the water off, it was still chilling. So I went a little bit lower than I wanted. Oh yeah, we're getting down now. 81, 80. All right, I'm going to turn that water off. Whatever you do, do not shut the output of the water off, because now this will get very hot and soft, because it's going to have hot wort going through it, 80-degree wort. And if you block that off, this will pop like a balloon. But lots of people make that mistake. Never block off the outputs of the water. The beer's alright, because you're going through copper. The water you're not. Alright, so now it's saying down the bottom 75. I don't think it would be 75. Alright, let's start the next clock. It's 3:46. These go in for half an hour. You'll see that starting to whirlpool maybe, just from the pump doing it. The next one is 3:46, so the next one goes in at 3:56. $20 grams of each. I'm just going to let them break up. And then I'll turn it off. Let it sit there for 10 minutes. This, gotta be careful, you don't want hot wort going into my Firmzilla. Just make sure. Alright, and we're ready to go. I need to go and turn the water on. Turn the pump on. Let's start. $21.5. That is perfect for a pitch. And about 10:30 the night before, I remembered I wanted to make a starter. This yeast was quite old and I just wanted to make sure it was viable, so I threw it on my stir plate at 20 degrees in my other fermenter fridge. I'm just going to turn this off now because I need this extension lead, but as you can see, that's fermenting away. It'll be a nice active starter to add. And have my starter, which is about just under 1.5 litres. I didn't take a reading of this, but you know, I'm not too worried. This is a home brew. We are not a brewery. Well, so there's the starter. The starter was at 20 degrees. The wort's at 21 degrees. That's perfect. Can't get much better than that. So I throw in my tilt. I whack the lid on. And I take my final reading. As you can see, I was quite happy with that. 1060, that's fine with me. I just check it in my hydro as well. You can see there, they're all reading around the same. throw it into the fermenter fridge, and I'm fermenting at about 19 degrees. You can see there the whirlpool did its job. There's a nice tube cone, or more hop cone, in the bottom of the Brewzilla. Alright, it's late at night here and a bit dark. Instead of dry hopping either at pitch or in 24 hours, I was going to try a new method of dry hopping the first time, even though it's not high krausen, but it's about 1020. So, you know, that's close to the end. So I thought I'd try that, but there's a few things going on. One, we're only just over 24 hours in. We're probably 30 hours in, maybe a couple more hours, but not much more. We're on that. I only pitched this yesterday at maybe 5 p.m. and I think now we're at about 10:30 p.m. on the Saturday night. So, you know, we're about 30 hours in. Now, we're still at high krausen. It might be hard to see, but we're down to 1034. Now, by the morning, I'm not sure how this yeast is going. It seems to be speeding up. It might not be, but we could be pretty low in the morning, so I've decided to dry hop tonight. And with this new method I'm trying, it's a smaller dry hop. Normally for an NIPA, I'd be throwing in 100 grams, 150 grams in each dry hop. This one method is a bit smaller. It's only 60 grams, 20 grams of each hop again. I haven't got my Sabro yet, so again it's Simcoe Citra-Mosaic. Let's get this in. But that does look quite active. I'm hoping not to get an overflow, but for this first one, I'm not removing that at the moment. That's just like a waste of beer at this stage in the ferment, I think. So I'm going to go through the top and just hope it doesn't overflow. I'm not going to talk too much, because sometimes when I talk too much, I get carried away and it'll overflow. But we'll see how we go this time. So yeah, 20 grams Simcoe Citra Mosaic. The proper recipe, Citra-Mosaic-Sabro. But let's just go for it, eh? Get that off out of the way. I'm trying to stay out of the way, but I haven't got much room here. And it's, when you try and undo it, that's too tight. So a little bit of gas out. It's not very much. Too much gas out. I'm going to have to use CO2 bottle or just wait. Eventually the gas produced will push that up and out, but I don't want to mess around. We're on about 12 psi. That one's the gas. There you go. But enough gas to pop it up. So that was enough gas to pop the lid up by itself. There we go. Let's just get these in and not mess around. When you've seen it pop off before, it's when I've mucked around too much and put the lid down here and I've totally messed around. So that's not mucking around. That's how I should have done. You should do it all the time. You don't have to take it off. Bang, done. Dry hops in. And make sure you do not put it on the beer line. There we go. What I believe is, like a lot of people, and like I have in the past, dry hop, 24 hours in, high krausen, whatever. I believe this method is, we're still at high krausen, as you can see. The idea behind that is you'll blow off less of the aromas through the ferment, because this will start, there's enough to get your biotransformation happening, but will blow off less, going out into the atmosphere than if you put it right at the start. The ferment's gone a lot faster than I thought. I thought it might sort of be a slow ferment. Well, not slow, 10 days, but it's going a bit quicker. It's saying we're at 98. We're 112. Ooh, it was 1015 this morning. So it's time to get the second dry hop in. I went a little bit early on the first dry hop. I'll put a thing up on the screen, but it was going really fast. And you can see that steep bit at the front, and then I dry hopped and it seemed to go up and then slow down again. I thought by the time I woke up on that second day that it would have been down below 120, and I wanted to get the dry hops in about that 120 mark, but you know, it went on for another day or so, so I don't know, but it doesn't matter. It's time to get the second dry hop in. Now my Sabro, well, the original Sabro still hasn't turned up. Just filed a missing package with Australia Post. But a second order I made through Grain and Grape has turned up. So even though it's just for the last dry hop, I'm going to throw 40 grams in, and 20 grams of Citra, 20 grams of Mosaic. It was going to be 20 of each, but since it didn't get in the earlier dry hop or even in the recipe, and especially since the first dry hop went a bit early, I'm just going to up the dry hop a little bit. Well, it's only up by 20 grams, but we might not even notice it in there, but we'll see when we drink it. I am going to go through the top of the Firmzilla. It's still fermenting a bit, and just want to get it in. I could put it through the bottom. I don't want to mess around. I think there's more chance of oxidation probably through the bottom, unless you get your flushing perfect, than there is just quickly putting it in the top, putting the lid back on and let it continue to ferment. I'm not going to purge it. I'm going to let it do its thing. So anyway, let's get to it. I can still see it's fermenting, so I'm comfortable with going through the top. Second dry hop in. You can see it's still fermenting there, see the bubbles. And the hops, a lot of the hops are on top there, that's fine. So you can see there, the yeast was pitched on the 28th of August in the afternoon. The first dry hop ended up going in very late on the 29th of August, the next day. And then the ferment sort of slowed down a little bit. The second dry hop was on the 1st of September. And I let that go for a few days, and I crash chilled late on the 4th of September for about 3 days. So all up, it was about 7 days fermenting, 3 days cold crash. There we go. It's been in the keg about a week or so now. It is lovely. It is really nice. It's just about everything I was hoping for. Hoppy. It's not bitter. It's not bitter like I thought it was going to be. Like I made it 37 IBUs. I don't think it's got that high. I didn't adjust all the AA of the hops, like when I switched out to Simcoe. Instead of Sabro, I didn't change a few numbers over, and the other numbers were a little bit lower. Also, you probably saw in the video, my whirlpool, or my chilling down to 80 degrees, actually went down to probably 75 where I started the whirlpool. All that adds up for a little bit less bitterness. But besides that, it's pretty good. The aroma took a few days to really develop. It's smashing out of it now. I think the London Fog fermented out a little bit further than I expected. It went down to 1010. So this next batch I'm going to use the Leyland East Coast dry yeast, and we'll see how that goes. But besides that, it's a pretty good beer. It's really best to, as I said, let it age a little bit. Not age, like after you keg it, give it a week. I mean, test it along the way and you'll see. And let it warm up too. This is ice cold. When they just warm up a little bit, the aroma pops and everything pops out of it. It's just good. It's what I've wanted on tap. Now, as I always do, but you don't usually get to see it, I talk about it. Any time I put a recipe out, I like to brew it at least twice. I brew it the first time, and then there'll always be something in my head going, oh, I can do that better next time, I can do this. So I usually do it at least twice. I did it with a Jedi. I've did it 6 or 7 times with the Hop Stomper video that's coming out soon. The Bridge Road Red Ale video that's coming out very soon. This will all be out in the next week, these videos, I think. that I brewed twice. It's just what I like to do. It makes me feel more confident to, release the video if I know it works. Now, you saw in the video I was a few points down. It always happens to me with wheat, but I seem to be a little bit more down than usual. Like, it's usually 4 points. But what was I? 7 points down, I think. Nothing too much to worry about. I fixed it with the dextrose, and I've got this awesome beer. But anyway, I thought I'd brew it twice. The second time I thought, what I'm going to do is I'm going to treat the oats like I nearly cooked them. You may as well say I cooked them. I soaked them with some hot water. They were quick oats, so they were cooked by the time they went into the mash. I also got the Blue Lake flaked wheat, and I put it in the wife's food processor. And I tell you what, it really took some processing. I thought it'd just be instant, like most wheat would just crumble, but this took a fair bit. And it made me think I'm going to get a lot more efficiency out of it. Now, of course, when I mashed this in, I had a big pot of porridge. I had all this really fine wheat, and I knew there was going to be troubles in the mash. I used rice hulls, but the mash was much slower. The first mash went really, really smoothly. I didn't expect that. The second mash was one of those ones where it was really slow. I ended up getting flow in it without too much hassle, but it was slow. Surprisingly, at the end, I was a couple more points down. Now, I actually sieved through the mash after I'd emptied it to look for lumps of things. I couldn't see any. I thought there might have been lumps of porridge. But, the flow was less, I don't know, but I was even more points down, which was a bit disappointing. I thought that extra bit of milling, grinding up the wheat and the porridge would have helped, but it didn't. Just one of those things. So I just added a little bit more Dex again to the recipe, and that's in the fridge there, fermenting now. One other thing I did, besides, I got to use the real hops. The Sabro turned up, so I could use the real Sabro through the whole recipe. It only made it to the second dry hop of this, so it was good to make sure that the Sabro was in the whole recipe this time. But I also sort of fashioned a whirlpool arm. I thought, I always whirlpool at the top, like you see in my last video. And if you have a look at the hop tube cone of the hops at the bottom of the boil pot, you'll see that it actually works pretty well. But I thought what I'd do this time is try and make a quick whirlpool arm. And it was simply a bit of silicone hose with a stainless steel elbow on the end that you can see here. So I'll really be looking forward to trying the one with the Sabro, since that was how the recipe was at the start. This was nearly exactly the same except with Simcoe. I'll let you know. I'll do a tasting vid for the Sabro one once it's done. It'll be another week or so yet. And what I'm hoping to get from that, of course, is the Sabro flavour. I'm hoping that the Lahmann yeast will just stop a little bit higher. I mean, this is really nice. It's really nice. I'm being critical. Oh, it's good. Another thing that bugs me about the wheat is it throws out my pH. I don't know if it's just me or everyone else. I have a lot of troubles with wheat, as you've probably heard me talk about in many other videos. I curse it, and it curses me. But I still get good results, as you can see. In the dry hop for the second one, I'm just going to up the Citra a bit. I kind of like all these, 100% Citra beers like this I've been drinking lately. So I'm just upping the Citra a little bit in the dry hop, just to give it a little bit more oomph. But there's not much else to say. It's a great beer. Thanks for putting up with the wait between the recipe creation video and the brew day. It was only because I wanted to brew it twice and just try and see if those different methods with the wheat and the oats help that efficiency a little bit. But it didn't. But as I said, it doesn't matter. Look at that. All right, cheers. Thanks for watching. Hope you liked the video. Keep your eyes out. It will be in less than a week that the Bridge Road Celtic Red clone recipe and video will be up. And the Stomping Ground one has to get up there too, the Hop Stomper. Anyway, cheers. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribes. Thanks to the patrons. Cheers to you. And I'll see you in the next one.